if you want to make sure that this is going to be a powerful year, if you want to make sure you're going to take things to the next level, the first thing you're going to have to do is you've got to let go of the old story. And you say, Andy, well, what do you mean the old story? The old story that I don't have the income, the old story that I don't have the support, the old story that I'm too old or I'm too young, the old story that I don't have the right amount of education, the old story that I don't have the right resources, the old story they don't want me to succeed, the old story they don't want to support me, the old story, well, he betrayed me or she betrayed me, the old story. It's time to let it go. Why? Because this is the time to start creating the new story. And you can't write the new chapter in your life if you keep rereading the old chapters. I'm going to repeat that one more time. You can't write the new chapter in your life if you keep repeating and rereading the old chapter. And most of you, at one point or another, you know, you've been sitting behind your car seat, and as you're driving, I want to bring back to your attention something, if you would notice with me. Next time you get into your vehicle, just think about this. Look at that windshield, that front windshield in your vehicle. And I want you to think about how big it is. Most of us, if we were to stand up and spread our arms out, that windshield is even wider than your arms spread apart. And the reason why that windshield is so large is because they understand, and they want you to understand, when you're operating a vehicle, the most important thing is what's before you. Now, if you want to take a look back, you notice they have this little rear view mirror right there in the center, right above the center of the center console in the vehicle. That's the rear view mirror. If you notice the difference in the sizes between that rear view mirror and that front windshield. And so the reason why it's designed like that is because the most important things when you're operating a vehicle are the things that are in front of you. And periodically you glance behind you just to take calculated risks. Periodically you glance behind you just to make sure that things are okay. But let me tell you something, the same thing applies when you're operating your dreams, when you're trying to take your dreams to the next level. You've got to be looking through that front windshield mirror. You have to be looking forward as into where you want to go. You've got to look forward, as Paul said in scripture, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to those things which are before. And so my question for you is, what are you looking forward to? Writing the book, possibly? What are you looking forward to? Starting your business? What are you looking forward to? New relationships? What are you looking forward to? Losing the weight? What are you looking forward to? Taking your life to the next level? Those are the things that you want to be focused on, not the things that happened last year, not the person who betrayed you, not the disappointments, not the letdowns. Why? Because it's virtually impossible for you to start writing the new chapter in your life if you keep looking in the rear view mirror. And let me tell you something. I know what that's like. You know, for some of you, if you don't know my story, you know, I was born to Haitian immigrants, and one of the things that was really emphasized in my household was the importance of going to school and getting a good education. And so I did that. I went to Florida State University. I studied very hard. I graduated summa cum laude. I got my master's degree in corporate accounting. I studied like crazy for the CPA exam, and I landed a job at one of the largest professional service firms in the world, PricewaterhouseCoopers. But let me tell you something. After about 3.5 years of working there, I realized that my life was starting to follow a basic routine. What I realized is that even though I spent all this time getting my college education in accounting, even though I got my master's degree, even though I was studying and prepared and passed the CPA exam, and I was working with this amazing company, there is something inside of me that was saying that there's got to be more than this. But let me tell you something. For 1.5 years, I thought about moving forward. For 1.5 years, I thought about pursuing my goals and my dreams. For 1.5 years, I thought about leaving my job in corporate America. For 1.5 years, I thought about becoming an entrepreneur. For 1.5 years, I thought about stepping into my passion, doing what I do right now, and having the ability to go into major corporations and travel the world and deliver keynote messages. For 1.5 years, I thought about it. But let me tell you what happened. I kept playing the old story. And you see, I was living by the old story, and the story that I was playing in my mind was that, you know, people were going to think that I was crazy to walk away from such a great career, to walk away after studying and putting in all that time and spending all that money on getting my college education. The story that I was telling myself is, well, what are they going to think of me if things don't work out? What if I have to come back and ask for my job back? That was the story that was playing in my mind. And the more that I replayed the story, the more that I had fear settle in. The more that I replayed the story, the more that I remained stagnant. The more that I replayed the story, the longer it took me to act on my goals and my dreams. And then finally, in December of 2004, I decided to stop replaying the old story that maybe it wouldn't work out, the old story that I had put in too much time with going to school, and I decided that I was going to start writing a new story. I decided I was going to take a chance on myself. I decided that I was going to go ahead and pursue my passion. I decided that I was going to become this entrepreneur. I decided to take my life to the next level. And so what I'm saying to you is, this may in fact be your year, your best year ever. This may be the year that you have the breakthrough. This may in fact be the year that you finally lose that weight once and once for all. This may be the year that you find the love of your life. This may be the year that you finally start the business. This may be the year that you launch the book. This may be the year that things begin to happen the way that you want them to. But let me remind you of this, that the only way that you're going to make this thing happen is if you're willing to leave behind the old story and start writing a new story. And so I want you to commit to that right now, if you've been replaying an old story, if you've been revisiting an old story that's been forcing you to play small, that's having you not fully show up, that's allowing you to make excuses. You know, one of the fastest things that I discover when I have the opportunity to sit down with my coaching students or speak to them over the phone, oftentimes their situation is a result of a story that they've created. You see, they created a story as to why they can't grow their business. They created a story as to why their business isn't growing. They created a story as to why they can't move forward on their goals and their dreams. They've created a story to justify their current set of circumstances. But what I'm saying to you is this, is if you want to take your life to the next level, if this is going to be the year for you, then what it means is that you're going to have to start writing a new story. And so I want you to think about, what's that story going to look like? What are the things that you're going to accomplish? Who are the people who are going to be with you? Who are the people that are going to be on the sideline? Who are the people you're going to have to leave behind? What are the things that you're going to accomplish? Who are the people that you're going to impact? Who are the people who are going to be blessed because you finally decided to show up? And so the first thing I want you to do, of course, is to leave behind the old story. Now, here's the second thing that I need you to understand. And this is something that I believe that is missing in a lot of people. That if you want this to be the year, then let me tell you something. You have to hustle. That's right. You've got to hustle. You say, Andy, well, what do you mean hustle? Let me tell you. Here's what Abraham Lincoln said. He said, good things may come to those who wait. He said, but only the things that are left by those who hustle. I'm going to say that one more time. Abraham Lincoln said that good things may come to those who wait, but only the things that are left by those who hustle. And so some of you right now, you're believing that there's competition out there. But let me tell you that what I've come to the realization is there really isn't much competition. You say, Andy, well, why do you say that? The reason why I say that is because most people aren't willing to hustle. Most people aren't willing to get uncomfortable. Most people aren't willing to step out of their comfort zone. Most people aren't willing to do what Les Brown said when he said that you have to be willing to do the things today that others won't do in order to have the things tomorrow that others won't have. And so most people rather make excuses. Most people rather live small. Most people rather not show up. And so if you're willing to hustle, if you're willing to get uncomfortable, if you're willing to seize the opportunities, and let me remind you of this, that during the course of a year, you will normally encounter 2 to 3 opportunities that if you acted on those opportunities, that it would completely change and alter the landscape of your life. I'm going to say that one more time because I need you to get this. During the course of any year, there's normally going to be 2 to 3 opportunities that are going to come your way that if you acted on them and did not create an excuse, that if you acted on them, you decide to show up, if you acted on them and didn't allow fear to start convincing you as to why you shouldn't show up, if you acted on them, they would literally change your life. But I've got to remind you that these opportunities, they only present themselves for a short period of time. There's a gentleman by the name of Eric Thomas. He's a motivational speaker. And here's one of the things that he said. He said, you've got to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime within the lifetime of the opportunity. That's right. And so what it means is that these life-changing opportunities have a very short window. And sometimes there'll be an opportunity that comes your way and it's only available for the next 10 minutes. It's only available for a weekend. It's only available for a week. It's only available for a month. And because you chose not to act, because of the fact that you've convinced yourself as to why you shouldn't make your move, because of the fact that you've convinced yourself that you don't have the resources, you've convinced yourself that you don't have the support, you've convinced yourself that you're too old, that you're too young, you've convinced yourself that you don't have the right experience or the right background. Somehow you've convinced yourself to not act, and so the opportunity passes you by. And so at some point, you've got to be willing to step in and make the things happen. Let me tell you something right now. And we're talking about hustling. You got to make sure, I want you to write this down. You have to prepare for the opportunity that you have not yet had. I'm going to say that to you one more time. You've got to prepare for the opportunity that you have not yet had. And so what it means is that there will be an opportunity that comes your way. And when that opportunity comes, guess what? It is going to be too late for you to prepare. That's what Whitney Young Jr. said. This is what he said. He says, better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. And so trust me on this, that somewhere during the course of this year, you're going to have to get your hustle on. You're going to have to make sure that you're preparing. You're doing the things that are required because an opportunity will come your way. And when that opportunity presents itself, there will be no time to prepare. When that opportunity presents itself, you're going to have to act. You're going to have to act immediately. I can tell you that there's been several literally life-changing moments in my career that my phone rang or something came up and an opportunity presented itself and I had to be ready to perform in that moment. I remember one time getting a phone call from my mentor that called me up. He said, Andy, I'm going in and I'm going to be speaking to this major organization. There's going to be several thousand people in attendance. And he says, I would love for you to go ahead and share the stage with me. And this event is going to take place this Saturday. And are you ready? Are you ready to take advantage of this opportunity? Are you ready to get on the stage and impact these lives? Are you ready to show up for your life? Are you ready to be able to handle coming on the stage right after me? Are you ready to hold the spotlight? Are you ready to make this thing happen? And I could tell you in that moment, there was no time for me to prepare. It was just a short few days. I had to be ready to show up. But I tell you one thing, I was doing the preparation as I continued to go out and do my own speaking engagements. I was preparing every single time. I was doing my phone calls every single Thursday and pouring into people's lives for over 4 years. I was preparing every single morning when I sit down and I listen to motivational tapes and CDs and sermons. I was preparing every single time I picked up a book to read. I was preparing every single time I had the opportunity to sit down with somebody and do some practicing and coaching and mentoring. Every single moment I had been preparing for that opportunity. And so what I want to tell you is this, that part of getting your hustle on, part of making things happen is you have to prepare for the opportunity that you have not yet had. And there's the thought. You're actually preparing for an opportunity that hasn't yet prepared itself, that hasn't presented itself. And how do you do that? You do that by investing in yourself. You do that by stretching. You do that by making sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who aren't around you, who are trying to get you to play it small, but people who pull you and make you want to step outside of your comfort zone. Write this down. If you're the smartest one in your group, then you need a new group. Dennis Kimbrough said that. Some of you are surrounding yourself with people who are having small conversations, people with small expectations, people who who aren't requiring and putting any demands on your life. People that when you share your dreams with them, they even just agree, or they find a way to just dummy down your dream, as opposed to surrounding yourself with people who are expanders, who are multipliers, who are going to enhance your vision, who when you call them and you say, hey, you know what, this year I want to have a 6-figure business, and they say to you, well, why not have a multiple 6-figure business? The person who you say, hey, you know what, I want to go ahead and lose 10 pounds, they say, well, why not lose 20 pounds? The person that you call up and you say, hey, I'm thinking about finally starting a blog, and they say to you, well, why not write a book? You can do this. That's the kind of people you want to surround yourself with. The kind of people who are going to push you, the type of people who are going to stretch you, the type of people who recognize and understand that part of having success during the course of the year, it's going to require some hustle. It's going to require some self-imposed type of energy and effort. You've got to pull this thing out of you and bring it forth, and understand that you can't be casual about your dreams. Jim Rohn said, if you're casual about your dreams, you'll end up a casualty. And unless you want your dream to be a casualty, I suggest you stop being casual. And you get serious about your goals and your dreams. And you surround yourself with some serious people. And you be willing to hustle and make things happen. You be willing to get uncomfortable and step outside of your comfort zone. Brian Tracy said that your comfort zone is your danger zone. Donald Trump said that your comfort zone is in direct opposition of your greater self. And so what it means is that there's something in you that's waiting to go to the next level. There's something in you that has the capacity to do more than what you've done thus far. But you've got to be willing to hustle. You've got to be willing to get uncomfortable. You've got to be willing to strike and take action while the iron is hot. Let me explain a universal principle that I need you to understand. Some of you have something that you've been wanting to do, that you've been meaning to do, but you haven't acted on it. You know that you should do it. You know that you should go to this event. You know that you should get some training and mentoring. You know that you should be going to the gym. You know that you should be changing your eating habit. You know that you should be creating your website. You know that you should be starting the business. You know that you should be doing follow-up calls. You know that you should be following up on your leads. You know that you should be investing in some type of content management system. All the things that you know that you need to do. But yet and still, you continue to procrastinate, hesitate, deliberate. But let me explain something to you. It's something by the name of the law of diminishing intent. Write that down. It's called the law of diminishing intent. The law of diminishing intent. And here's what the law of diminishing intent says. It says that when you intend to do something, like write a book, when you intend to do something, like start the business, when you intend to do something, like get the coaching and mentoring, when you intend to do something, like picking up the books and the tapes and the cassettes to read, when you intend to do something, like picking up the phone and calling a family member and saying, hey, I'm sorry, I love you, I just want to put this behind us. When you intend to do something, like spend more time with your family, when you intend to do something and you don't do it, the longer that it takes you, the longer that you take where you actually don't act and you don't move forward on this thing that you've been wanting to do, the greater the likelihood that it will never happen. Yeah. I know you may not want to hear that, but it's a principle. You see, when you intend to do something, but you don't act in that moment. Somebody says, hey, I got a great book for you. You say, oh my gosh, what's the name of that book? Oh, I've got to get that book. But you don't go buy that book in that moment. If somebody says, hey, I've got an opportunity for you, and you say, oh, that sounds like a good opportunity, but you don't act in that moment. When a good idea comes to you and you don't write it down and you don't start a game plan to act on it right that moment, the longer that you take to act on it, the greater the likelihood that it will not happen. That is called the law of diminishing intent. And so the only way that you can combat that is by making sure that there's a sense of urgency, by making sure that you're taking immediate action action. And that is the sign of what it means to actually hustle, to get out there and make things happen. You're not waiting for an opportunity. You create opportunities. You're not waiting on anybody to choose you. You choose yourself. When you decide that you're going to take your goals to the next level, when you decide that you're going to make some things happen, that's what's required. You've got to be willing to hustle. And people who hustle, you have to bring up your energy level. Let me tell you something. It's very difficult to get your hustle on. It's very difficult to make things happen when you have a very lethargic attitude about life, when you're not willing to get uncomfortable, when you're not willing to push through the crowd, when you're not willing to do the things that are necessary to take you to the next level. So not only do you have to make sure you're letting go of the old story, not only do you have to make sure that you're getting your hustle on and acknowledge the fact that hustle is the new currency, as one of my buddies would say, but finally, here's what I need you to understand. You've got to trust the process. Yeah. You got to trust the process and understand that somewhere along the journey that there's going to be some trials. There's going to be some tribulations. There's some things that are going to come your way that you didn't anticipate. You can reflect back on your life, and there'll be many moments, many times that you can reflect in which something happened that you didn't anticipate, something that threw you off. You have a loved one that unfortunately got ill. You have a loved one that unfortunately has passed away. You'll have something that you didn't anticipate, somebody that you had been with all your life, somebody who you thought you were going to spend the rest of your life with, comes in the room and says, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. You yourself go in for a doctor's visit and the doctor says, hey, we've got to run some additional tests. Or you've been working for a company and they call you in and they say, look, we're downsizing and we've decided we've got to let you go. Or you put in an investment, you invest someplace and you thought you were going to get a return, only to get a phone call and find out that all of your investment is gone. Some things are going to happen. As a matter of fact, Scripture says that in this world you will have trials and tribulations. Not that you may, not that there's a 50-50 chance, not that there's a slight probability. You will. But here's what I need you to understand. That even though along the process you will be tested, trust and believe that you can handle it. Trust and believe that no matter what it is that comes your way, that you'll be able to push through. Trust and understand that there's nothing that's going to come your way that you weren't already built to be able to sustain. And here's what I also need you to understand. And it's one of these things that most people just, they don't seem to understand this. As a matter of fact, Mike Tyson, out of all people, probably put this thing best. And it was one of these times when Mike was at the top of his game, right? He's knocking out people right and left, and people are stepping to the ring. They can't, beat him. And all these people are getting interviewed. They're talking about, what the game plan is to knock out Mike Tyson. And some of the people say, well, we're going to try to take him to the 4th, 5th round. Some of the people say, look, man, he's a decent fighter, but he's a bully. He's never had anybody step in the ring with him with a lot of heart. Some of the people say, you know what? He's stiff. He doesn't have the range of motion. We're going to move around and keep him tired in the ring. And then somebody asked Mike Tyson, said, Mike, what do you think about all these people that are making all these comments? What do you think about all this commentary that's out there? And Mike Tyson said, you know what? He said, everybody's got a game plan until they get hit. Yeah. And so what's your game plan? And are you ready for the hit? And when the hit comes your way, will you understand that it's part of the process? Will you understand that you can push through? Will you understand what Elsie Robinson said, when she said that things may happen around you and things may happen to you, but the only things that matter are the things that happen in you? Will you understand that you have something in you that gives you the capacity to overcome anything that comes your way? Will you understand the words of Les Brown when he said, no matter how bad it is or how bad it gets, you've got to tell yourself, I am going to make it. Will you understand what Willie Jolly said when he said that a setback is a setup for a comeback? Will you understand the words of John C. Maxwell when he says that every breakdown prepares you for a breakthrough? Will you understand that as you go through your process and you get hit with that thing that you didn't anticipate? Yeah, that thing that makes you want to curl up and cry. That thing that makes you just want to stay in the room and not come out. You've got to understand it's part of the process. I think about a couple of times when I got hit with those experiences. When I remember getting the phone call about my father not looking too well and rushing over to check on him, and then us having to call the ambulance and going into the hospital. And then my sister walking into the hospital room and saying, Andy, you've got to get some rest. You can't try to stay here all night. No, don't stay here all night. Let's just come back in the morning. And then I remember getting in the car and driving home and grabbing a bowl of cereal. And before I could put in the second spoon into my mouth, the telephone rang and there was a call. And they asked me to come back to the hospital. And even though the hospital was probably just about 7 minutes away, it felt like a 30-minute drive. And I remember the look on the face of that doctor when she met me out in the hallway. Yeah, there's going to be some hits. But I could tell you this, that as difficult as that experience was for me, as much as I didn't think that I'd be able to handle it at the moment, I realized that there's nothing, absolutely nothing, that will come our way that us, along with God, that we don't have the ability to handle. I remember graduating from college with no student loans, and I was dating somebody at the time who was going on for some post-secondary education and needed me to co-sign on a student loan. And I remember signing that dotted line with the understanding that once she graduated, that she would be paying those student loans. And I remember us going our separate ways, and then her deciding that she was no longer going to pay the student loans. And as someone who had no student loans, I had inherited a $40,000 student loan. I remember that feeling. I still make some of those payments till this day. I remember getting angry every single month, but I could tell you this, I was able to find my way through it. And if we were to open up these lines right now, that we could go on and on and on with the stories about the life hits, stories that make us doubt the process, stories that have us convinced that we can't make it. But I want to remind you, if this is going to be your year, trust and believe that anything that you're dealing with at this moment, anything that comes your way, is part of the process. That it may not make sense to you right now, but there's something that you're going to learn through the experience. There's going to be growth. Your shoulders begin to get wider. All of a sudden, you begin to discover some things about yourself that you didn't know. You begin to understand that you're not in this thing alone. You begin to understand that you're stronger than what you originally thought. You begin to understand that there's some other things about you that you didn't understand, that can only be revealed during the course of the trial. Martin Luther King said the true character of a man or woman is not discovered during their times of comfort, no, but rather during their times of challenge and controversy. That you begin to learn some things about yourself. You begin to discover that there's something special about you. You begin to discover that you have the ability to do more than you ever began to imagine. You begin to discover that everything that you've accomplished up to this point is only the tip of the iceberg, and that there's so much more in you. And so I believe that this is going to be your year. But if this is going to be your year, let me just remind you, number one, that you've got to let go of the old story. You cannot begin to write the new chapter in your life if you continue to revisit and reread all the old chapters. You will get into a wreck if you attempt to drive your dreams looking only through your rear view mirror. The reason why the front windshield is so big, because your future is before you, and and not behind you. That's why Paul said, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to those things which are before, I push towards the mark. There's something that is waiting on you. Your best years are in front of you and not behind you. And let me also tell you this, that hustle is the new currency, that there's got to be a sense of urgency. You can't be casual about your dreams. If you're casual about your dreams, you'll end up a casualty. You've got to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime within the lifetime of the opportunity, that during the course of a year, there will be 2 to 3 ideas, 2 to 3 opportunities that if you simply act upon it, it will change your life. And finally, let me remind you this, you've got to trust the process. And yes, there'll be things that are going to come your way. Yes, there'll be challenges. There'll be things that you didn't anticipate. And yes, you've got to expect to be tested. But here's what they failed to tell you. You were built for the test. Yeah, you were built for the test. Yeah, this is your time. Something special is about to happen. But you got to be willing to let go of the old story. You got to be willing to hustle. And most importantly, you got to trust the process.
Yes, yes.